But if you're getting a 34% pay increase over 4 years and you're offering 20% to employees right now, do you think that's fair?
Well, I think when you look at the overall structure and the fact that 92% is based on performance, and you look at what we've been doing of sharing in the profitability when the company does well, I think we've got a very compelling offer on the table, and that's the focus I have right now.
We are the union!
We are the union!
For the first time in history, the United Autoworkers Union is striking against all Big Three automakers at the same time. The Big Three automakers are General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis. Currently, around 13,000 workers are on strike from Big Three plants across the Midwest, around 9% of the 145,000 people in the union. President of the UAW, Shawn Fain, may call for more workers to strike if demands are not met.
This strategy will keep the companies guessing. It will give our national negotiators maximum leverage and flexibility in bargaining. And if we need to go all out, we will.
These are their demands. In 2008, when the auto industry was in serious trouble, the union agreed to help companies out by making certain concessions on workers' behalf. They agreed to delay cost of living adjustments, suspend contributions to retiree health care, and eliminate wages for laid-off employees. The companies also instituted tiered wages, which provided newer hires with lower wages and fewer benefits. Since then, companies have not reinstituted cost of living adjustments, restored retiree health care, or done away with tiered wages.
This is our generation's defining moment. The money is there, the cause is righteous, the world is watching, and the UAW is ready to stand up.
The union is seeking a 40% wage increase over the next 4 years, keeping in line with the growth of executive salaries and company profits.
40% will put us out of business. We would lose $15 billion. We would have to cut people, close plants. What's the good of that?
They could double our wages, and they could not raise the price of vehicles, and they would still make billions of dollars.
They are also calling for the end of tiered wages, pensions for all workers, increased retiree pay, as well as the reinstitution of cost of living adjustments and retiree health care.
I want to bring in Scott Fox. He's been with Ford for over 30 years. You are out here today. This is actually your first strike because Ford has not struck since the 1970s. Your feelings as you're out here this morning?
I got to look out for the people that are coming up behind me right now. We want to keep this place running, and we want to keep Ford still strong, but we need to do what we need to do to keep it that way.
There are a list of demands that the union has that they say the automakers did not meet. What is your top priority that you want to see in this next contract?
I want to see the two-tier people. I want to see that abolished, eliminated, and or reduced greatly. I just don't feel that. We have a guy right here who was walking the line with me last night, over nighttime. 18 years. It took him 18 years to get to full-time. 10 years, part-time employee, and then it took him 8 years to get to full pay. That's not called for. He's been committed here with the company, so that's my biggest thing, is reducing that tier program that they've got going down.
They're also asking for a 4-day work week and better conditions for temporary workers. Finally, they want the right to strike over plant closures and restore pay for workers if companies shutter, especially in the face of growing investment into electric cars. Big Three executives have offered wage increases of up to 20%, an additional holiday and parental leave. They have yet to strike a deal with the union.
Household income has to keep up with inflation. They're just trying to make it an earning to be able to provide for their families. So I give them that point. Some of the other demands are really overreaching. It's possible to go back and put back in place the pension program that was negotiated back in 07, 8, and 9. And I can tell you that Bill Ford worked tirelessly to save Ford back then when we were all going through the financial meltdown. This is not a case where Ford says, I just want to take care of our workers. Ford lost $6 billion in the last 2 years with, again, another administrative policy to convert to electric vehicles. This took a $9.2 billion grant to be able to build a battery plant in Michigan. So that's proof positive of their commitment to their UAW workers. So I think some of these demands, 40 hours pays for 32 hours work, I understand you got to put it all on the table and then come together. But this has been a very polarizing negotiation, and again, historic when all three go out. You know, the UAW has spent countless hours tactically deciding how to go on strike. I'm not sure they spent the same amount of time figuring out how to get back to work.
There might be wide-ranging effects from these strikes. If the strikes drag on, it is projected that they might knock some fractions of a percentage off of the national GDP. Consumers are not likely to see spikes in car prices in the short term, especially as existing inventory lasts. However, if the strike continues, there may be bumps in car prices as well as delays in the long term. Already on Friday, Ford and GM shares dropped, while competing non-union car companies such as Tesla saw their shares rise. Striking workers will get $500 a week while striking, which may create local recessions as those employed by striking plants tighten their belts.
I don't know how I'm gonna survive, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be out here striking.
We're gonna be here as long as we can, you know, until we get what we deserve. You know, it's time.
President Biden is concerned about the strike, and it is likely that we will continue to see White House intervention throughout the bargaining process.
Negotiations between the United Autoworkers and the big three auto companies. You know, I've been in touch with both parties since this began over the last few weeks and over the past decade. Auto companies have seen record profits, including the last few years, because of the extraordinary skill and sacrifices of the UAW workers. But those record profits have not been shared fairly, in my view, with those workers. Just as the Treasury Department has released a report pointing out that the most comprehensive report ever dealing with how unions are good for both union workers and non-union workers and the overall economy. Unions raise workers' wages, they said, incomes, increase home ownership, increase retirement savings, increase access to critical benefits like sick leave and child care, and reduce inequality, all of which strengthen our economy for all workers. That's because unions raise standards across the workplaces and entire industries, pushing up wages and strengthening benefits for everyone. That's why strong unions are critical to a growing economy and growing it from the middle out, the bottom up, not the top down. That's especially true as we transition to a clean energy future, which we're in the process of doing. I believe that transition should be fair and a win-win, for auto workers and auto companies. But I also believe the contract agreement must lead to a vibrant, made-in-America future that promotes good, strong, middle-class jobs that workers can raise a family on. Where the UAW remains at the heart of our auto economy, and where the big three companies continue to lead in innovation, excellence, quality, and leadership. Last night, after negotiations broke down, the UAW announced a targeted strike at a few big three auto plants. Let's be clear. No one wants a strike. Say it again. No one wants a strike. But I respect workers' right to use their options under the collective bargaining system. And I understand the workers' frustration. Over generations, auto workers sacrificed so much to keep the industry alive and strong, especially through the economic crisis and the pandemic. Workers deserve a fair share of the benefits they helped create for an enterprise. I do appreciate that the parties have been working round the clock. And when I first called them at the very first day of the negotiations, I said, please stay at the table as long as you can to try to work this out. And they've been around the clock, and the companies have made some significant offers. But I believe they should go further to ensure record corporate profits mean record contracts for the UAW. Let me say that again. Record corporate profits, which they have, should be shared by record contracts for the UAW. And just as we're building an economy of the future, we need labor agreements for the future. It's my hope that the parties can return to the negotiation table to forge a win-win agreement. To continue our active engagement, I'm dispatching 2 members of my team to Detroit, Acting Labor Secretary Julie Hsu and White House Senior Advisor Gene Sperling, both of whom have been involved up to now, to offer their full support for the parties in reaching a contract. The bottom line is that auto workers help create America's middle class. They deserve a contract that sustains them in the middle class. So thank you very much. That's all I'm going to say.